Share screen. Getting there.
It comes on that I can't do.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome aboard. Hope you can hear me. Make sure we're not muted. We're good. Let us begin. Oh, there we go.
This one is the better.
Do this.
This one's very good. It's an idea.
One more thing we're at it.
So we get a yes. When we get a yes, then we don't do information because then we got a yes.
Okay, good evening, ladies. We are going to get started with our first step of tonight's journey, which is to explore what's going on the Yiddish calendar. And from there, we're going to jump right into what's going on in the Parshah. And then we're looking for one practical, relevant life message to explore and to take with us this evening, to last us a whole week, to help us live by our truest potential, the reason we were born, and the purpose of the waking up this morning, for living today and for living every day. We look to the Torah for direction. Let's start off by saying a major thank you to our Michal and Aaron for sponsoring the lesson, the content of tonight's lesson. And we're going to also wish a very hearty mazel tov to Mrs. Abrams and her entire family in the occasion of her grandson's wedding today. Wishing her and the entire family much Yiddish Nachas for Shalom David and Kelly's wedding. Best Hashem, they should only have good health and joy always. Mazel tov. Lots of Yiddish Nachas. I hope you can hear me.
Thank you so much.
Moving right along, we are going to describe what else is going on today besides for the tremendous simcha over in Lakewood. We are talking about today Chof Ches Sivan, the 28th day of the month of Sivan, is also a special day on the recent Chabad calendar, in the sense that in maybe, what is it? Where we now touch a pay. So we're talking about 70 years, almost, just over 70 years ago, when the Rebbe and the Rebbitzin made it out of Europe on what turned out to be the very last ship that safely crossed over to the Atlantic during those war years. What was fascinating was that Rebbitzin Chaim Mushka, the Rebbe's wife, who together they received tickets and visas that were arranged by the previous Rebbe there, his father-in-law, personally, for the Americans to welcome him in and to get board onto the last ship. And their tickets arrived and they were going to board the ship. And the last moment before they boarded the ship, they received an urgent telegram from the previous Rebbe. The tickets that sent you to get on that ship, don't go on that ship. Now, for most people who knew that this was the last ship that was leaving and it was getting more and more dangerous to cross the high seas, and this was the last chance to all of a sudden turn around and say, no, we're not going to take that boat ride. It was like you really had to have enormous faith to not take the ride, to not save your own skin in those during the heat of the war. Yet the Rebbes and the Rebbitzin, without any question, immediately changed the plans. They didn't board the boat and they didn't board the ship and they didn't get on. And unfortunately, that ship never made it safely across the ocean. However, miraculously, another ship became an option, and the Rebbe and Rebbitzin boarded the other second, or which then actually became the last ship to cross, and they made it to safety and arrived on the shores of America on the 28th of Sivan. And for many years, people didn't know this, but it was an extremely important day in enabling the continuation of Yiddishkeit that we so appreciate today. It was a gift that Hashem gave to us, and today is that day that we celebrate the gift of Hashem giving us the Rebbe and the Rebbe's in safety in America, with all the enormous amount of responsibilities that the Rebbe took on from the very moment he arrived to safety. And for many years, as we said, it wasn't known. But later on, when it did become known, the Rebbe allowed us to celebrate that day, so much so that they even made up a bringing. It was said on Chav Ches Sivan Tafshin Aleph, very, very powerful stuff, describing how having Yiddishkeit on that hemisphere, so if you look at the map, it's the western side of the world. If Israel would be turn the globe a little bit and have Israel on the top, anything on the bottom half of the world is considered Chatzi Kadar HaTachton, the lower half of the world, just the furthest part away from Israel, which includes North America, although it's north, but it's further away from Israel than we are. And of course, Israel is the center of the created world, and created heaven and earth and placed a central point, a venue in which He allows His presence to be felt. And the further away from that one goes, the further one is from the center of the world. And when the Rebbe traveled to that lower half, I'm not going to say southern half because it's North America, but it's the lower half of the Yiddish world, of the world that Hashem created, and Hashem delivered Yiddishkeit there in the form of the Rebbe's activities and active encouragement to all of us to get active and empowered from that further, lower half of the world. So much change, positive change, goodness change, that till this very day is driving the world over. Today's a special day. Today's a very highly charged day. The Sikh Rebbe goes on to talk about the word, the 28, being Chav Ches, the word Koyach that comes from the word that we have in today's date. Koyach Sivan brings us, Koyach means strength, so it brings us strength, but particularly the strength of this month. This month, obviously, is still the highlight was the giving of the Torah and the strength that we get from Torah. Koyach Sivan. The koyach that we derive from this day empowers us, drives us, of course, with the knowledge of how special the day actually is, to continue full steam towards the realization of what the world is all from day one. We are on a trajectory headed towards a very specific destination, and that is we are working towards a world of Mashiach, a world where Hashem feels at home here. Hashem feels at home not with the angels, not in a place that is super spiritual and abstract, but instead in a very down-to-earth world. And Rebbe played on the fact that it was specifically the lower half of the world that Yiddishkeit traveled to and emanates from, where we are finding and making Hashem welcome in places that, and up until that point, were considered antithetical to Yiddishkeit. The way it was considered, you made it to the Golden Medina, you came across the Atlantic, you got to leave the shtetl Jew behind because things are different. And the Rebbe championed in the footsteps of the previous Rebbe that it's no different. Hashem is Hashem everywhere. The Creator is the creator of heaven and earth everywhere. And of course, the creator of heaven and earth has a lot in store for us and high faith, expectations, and confidence in everything that we can do. So on a day like today, we recommit ourselves, and more importantly, retell ourselves how much Hashem really believes in what we can do. And that's what we should do even more, with more passion. More doesn't have to mean different things, but more has to mean the things that we are doing, we do even more involved, more switched on, more present. That's a little bit about what's going on today. Today's Chav Ches. What else is going on in the Yiddish calendar this week? What else is going on in the Yiddish calendar this week is that we have tomorrow night, Wednesday and Thursday. So Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday will be the new month, Rosh Chodesh. The beginning of every month is very special, especially the month of Tammuz, which in itself is a very loaded month. on the Yiddish calendar
The mother-in-law
with quite a range of different highlights, starting from which is Chodesh Tammuz, moving right into Shabbos. This coming Shabbos is a very, very special and important day on every calendar, starting from the times of Yeshua, when the Jewish people finally made it into the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael. Joshua led the Jews into Israel, and when he brought us in, Gimel Tammuz, the third day of the Tammuz, was the day that he managed to stop the sun in the sky. Just think about what that means. For the sun to stop in the sky is such a ripple effect on so much of creation. For a day to be longer than 24 hours. But what's fascinating is it's actually written in the text of Tanakh. This is not just a miracle recorded in the Medrash. Yeshua stops the sun in order to be able to carry out the mission that Hashem had for him at his time. In his particular case, it was about bringing the Jewish people into the Holy Land of Israel. And to us, the message it carries for us is that Hashem can stop every single rule in nature, as long as it is. As long as that's what we need in order to fulfill our mission. We can be sure that whatever Hashem has in store for us as a mission will certainly be carried through. I'm seeing chats are coming through. A quick look. I'm going to mute everybody, but I will say that in general, it's hard for me to keep an eye on the chat. Anyone who wants to unmute yourself at any time is welcome to do so. It's Alt-A on your keyboard, or just hold down the space bar. If you are on the phone, it's *6. But it's going to be hard for me to keep an eye on the chat. I'm just trying to juggle what I have here ready. So one thing that's going on in the calendar this week is Chof Chesiva. One thing that's going on in the calendar this week, Rosh Chodesh. Another thing that's going on this week is Shabbos. Shabbos Gimel Tammuz. But in particular, closer to our generation, Gimel Tammuz. On the Friedrich Rebbe's calendar, on the previous Rebbe's calendar, is the day that he was sent away to exile as part of his short, abridged punishment for Rahman al-Islam, what the communists tried to do to him. But it turns out that actually, although it was the day he was sent away in exile, it was actually the day he was saved from the death penalty. His life was saved, and instead it was exchanged to exile, which eventually, in a short day, 9 days later, turned into actually it was exonerated and was sent free. But Gimel Tammuz was the beginning of the goodness. It was the beginning of his release, although at the time it looked really hard. And that kind of explains Gimel Tammuz on a third level, where we know in 1994, on Gimel Tammuz, the third day of Tammuz, the Rebbe, who unfortunately had not just one stroke, but two strokes on Chav Zayin Adar. On Gimel Tammuz, 1994, Tafshin and Daled, a very, very difficult day for Chassidim. But we know that everything that happened to the Rebbe, as the Alter Rebbe said about himself, comes as part of a chosen, but also a path that couldn't be done in any other way. And we really commit ourselves when it comes to this Shabbos. There'll be tremendous Fabrengens. Everyone's invited and welcome to join. But more importantly, to find ways to connect with the Rebbe in a day like today, like this coming Shabbos of Gimel Tammuz. But more importantly, to find ways to be able to carry on the mission that the Rebbe began, the mission that the Rebbe charges us with. Invested so much time and energy. If we think about it, even on a purely human level, the amount of hours the Rebbe invested into the followers, into Chassidim, into humanity, the amount of hours, the amount of knowledge the Rebbe shared with us, most of which is, or many of which is recorded and published in written form, in video form, in audio form, teachings that can inspire, teachings that direct, and teachings that help us explore our own heritage of the Torah. But all of that the Rebbe knew for himself, yet went through the effort of sharing it with us so that we can journey that journey, so that we can grow and connect. And of course, this, on a day like Gimel Tammuz, is something we ought to spend time preparing for, but also working with, living with, uplifting ourselves, so that we can also come to this Shabbos with the absolute confidence that we are doing that which we can do to be able to make the trajectory, the destination to which we are headed, that much closer to our reality. So we're going to, with that introduction, 4 tremendous highlights of this week, what's going on in the Jewish calendar. Let's move on to what's happening in this week's Parsha, living with the times, as the Alter Rebbe said. Let's live with this week's Torah portion. Let's see what's inside. As a name of a Parsha, we've got a great name. It's not necessarily the name of the best guy on the block. Not many people name the children after this individual, but his name was Korach. And Korach happened to be a very influential individual. He was so influential, he had enormous tact, very wealthy, a great scholar, an enormous Talmid Chacham, and it happened to be he was from the top tribe of Levi. He was a Levi himself. He was from the Shevet Levi, and Korach had a lot to show for himself. As the story has it, Korach wasn't very proud. He wasn't very supportive of Moshe Rabbeinu. And in this week's Sedra, the Torah records how unfortunately he chose to create and lead a rebellion against Moshe's leadership. So this was an affront to Moshe himself in particular, but also into the hierarchy, so to speak, that Moshe Rabbeinu had built up. He challenges Moshe's leadership, and he says, hold on one second, Moshe, you're become yourself the king, and you've taken your brother to be the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. You've decided who should and shouldn't be great, and he leads a rebellion, and unfortunately, he manages to gather big momentum to the masses, drawing them up against Moshe Rabbeinu and his leadership. Of course, that's not a good idea, especially when Moshe was the one who single-handedly led us out of Mitzrayim, led us out of slavery. He's the one who led us across the Red Sea, as we've learned. He's the one who brought us to Har Sinai to receive the Torah. He's the one who prayed and saved us from Hashem's wrath every time we messed up. And so to turn around and start accusing Moshe and start rebelling against Moshe was certainly not a great idea. But he had great backing of top leaders. 250 of the Jewish leadership were on Korach's team, working their way up against Moshe. And so Moshe tells them to wait it over, sleep over it, don't get so heated. But the next morning, they come back as strong as ever. And Moshe says, you know what? Here's the standoff. Let's see. Each one of you who thinks that they can act as a Kohen Gadol, let them bring the holiest offering in the book. Let them try and offer the Ketores that usually is reserved only for the Kohen Gadol and see what happens. But I warned you, whoever's not supposed to be doing this isn't going to survive to tell the tale. But if you think you can, try it. And there you have it. 250 people, each believing that they will be the only one. Or that maybe the rules will change and many people will be able to do it. And Moshe Rabbeinu warns them. And as the story continues, they offer up the Ketores, they bring up the incense, and Hashem tells Moshe, tell the people, stay far away from Korach, from Dasan and Azvirim, his right-hand men and the henchmen, and all of their family and belongings. Because what's about to happen is going to be so wowing and scary, but also there's not going to be a way out. And that's exactly what happens. The earth opens up and swallows Korach and his family and his belongings alive into the ground. And all the 250 of these great scholars who are bringing up the Ketores unannounced were burnt and consumed in the fire of the Ketores. What happens next is that Moshe tells Elazar, one of the other helpers, to collect all the leftover Ketores because it was offered up as a gift to Hashem, which is the highest form, but also to turn all these shovels made out of copper, to turn it into a monument, a reminder of what could go on, what could happen when someone starts up with the Kohanim, when someone claims that they're as good as the Kohanim, because they aren't. And the Kohanim are chosen by Hashem, and for someone to challenge that is to challenge Hashem. And he creates a cover for the Mizbeach out of that copper, and the story's not over. You would imagine that at this stage of the game, the people are wowed about the display of clarity of how righteous Moshe and Aaron are, and how there's no way anyone else could challenge it. Yet, trust the Yiddish people to wake up the next morning complaining further. And they say, Moshe, what did you do? You took 250 Rabbanim, 250 great people, and you killed them. You told them to bring Torah, and they were killed. How dare you? And this was too much. Hashem was furious. And he sends the angel of death, break out in a pandemic, in a plague, and people are dropping like flies. Hashem is so angry, so upset at the Yiddish people's behavior. Even after this, you still continue in Korach's footsteps, claiming that Moshe is not a good leader and he hadn't done the right thing. And Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Aaron and he says, Aaron, right now people are dying. You must stop the plague. What can you do? You can take the Ketores, the same incense that killed those 250 leaders who did it incorrectly, and you can save the people by offering up the Ketores right in the middle of where people are dying from this plague. And that's exactly what Aaron does. And Rashi records, I just love this story. It's gorgeous. Rashi records the message that describes the conversation between Aaron bringing up the Ketores, the incense, he's the Kohen Gadol, and he gets into an argument, into a wrestling match between him and the angel of death. Think about it for a second. You have Aaron on a mission from Moshe to stop the plague. And you have the angel of death doing his job. Hashem has sent him to kill our people, and people are dropping like flies. And Aaron grabs him and says, angel of death, stop right now. I'm offering up the Ketores, and in the name of the Ketores, you shall stop. Says the angel of death to Moshe. This is beautiful. It's in Rashi. Rashi records this. Says the angel of death to Aaron, how dare you? I'm on a mission. I'm an agent from Hashem. You're an agent from Moshe. Who should we listen to? Should we listen to Hashem, or we should listen to Moshe? Hashem says I should be doing this. You coming on behalf of Moshe telling me to stop? Says Aaron, I don't know, but Moshe would never tell me to do anything unless that's what Hashem wants. Says angel of death back to Aaron, how can you say that? I have a direct instructive. I'm directly instructed by Hashem to do this. Says Aaron, come back with me. Let's together ask Moshe what to do. They come back together to Moshe, and Moshe is in conversation with Hashem, and Hashem says to the angel of death, he's right. They've offered up the Ketores, and therefore you should stop. How amazing. First of all, that Moshe was able to stop the angel of death. He knew the secret of the Ketores, of the incense. But for me, what's even more fascinating, and the Rebbe points this out, is that Aaron was so 100% confident that even when the angel of death says to him that I'm on a mission from Hashem, Aaron has 100% confidence if the Rebbe, if the leader of the Jewish people, if Moshe Rabbeinu says to him, this is what you need to do, it might look like it contradicts this, that, and the other. You can be 100% certain that when Moshe says to do something, it must be that's what Hashem wants. And he was willing to put his bets down. And he was willing to drag the angel of death back to the Mishkan, and he won. Because Moshe Rabbeinu said so. And to me, that's one of the fascinating things of this week's Sedra. Story continues. Once the dust settles, Hashem says to Moshe, I need more. I need to have something that will remind the people that even if the stakes are up against them, even if the heat turns up, they shouldn't think for a moment that they can challenge the Kohanim, because it's really dangerous. When they do challenge the Kohanim, you can see that bad results happen. We need to stop this. We need to have them have a very material, tangible reminder that the Kohanim are chosen by Hashem and there's nothing to mess with. And that their message should be that if they do challenge the Kohanim, the response is going to be fast, immediate, and harsh. And therefore, he says to Moshe, please collect from each of the leaders of each of the tribes, including the leader of the Kohanim, Aaron. Each one should present their staff, and you should take them all and leave them overnight in the holiest room in the world. The Holy of Holies, Kodesh HaKadoshim. Leave it there, and that's exactly what Moshe does. He leaves all the different sticks there, and blow and behold, the next morning, Aaron's stick is the only one that comes out different than it went in. It was a walking stick, but his blossomed and it turned to start growing almonds. And of course, almonds blossom quicker than many other fruits. And this was a sign that when Hashem wants to respond to challenges against the Kohanim, it's going to come fast. And it's going to come right away. The end of the Parshah talks about how Hashem establishes support team, a support network that would help protect the people from making the mistake of crossing the boundaries and challenging what Hashem has set as designated for Kohanim, for holy spaces. Who are those? Those are going to be the tribe of Levi, who are going to be those who would help be a buffer zone between where most of the people lived and the holy space of the Mishkan in the center. And the idea was that in the center of the camp was the holiest space, home of Hashem, and around from all directions was where the Jewish people encircled it. The tribe of Levi would live in between the holy space and the regular living quarters. And their job would be to help people realize that if they cross a certain boundary, they're going into holy space, and they should only do so when it's right and when it's correct. And in return, the Jewish people will support that buffer network. They will support the tribe of Levi, they will support the Kohanim, and in particular, this parasha mentions a couple of gifts that they would give regularly to the Kohanim and Leviim, namely the offerings that were given, the terumas, the first of each crop, the bechor, the first of each, when a sheep has a new baby, the lambs, the first of each lambs, so the firstborn lambs, and of course, a number of other gifts that were given also from the cattle, as well as gifts that were given to the Levi and from the Leviim. So the tribe of Levi would get the special tithing, and from their gift that they got, they in turn would also gift part of that, Terumas Maisa, to give that again to the Kohanim, so that it would be constantly clear that there is boundaries, there is a hierarchy, and that's how Hashem has chosen to design. So to sum up in a nutshell, what this week's parasha has, although there are many loaded areas, we're learning the importance of boundaries. We're learning the importance of a Kohen as a Kohen, and Levi is a Levi, and Yisrael is a Yisrael, and each one is right in their own space, and we've got to stay in our lane and make the most of what we can do. Be the best me that I can be. Parshas Korach, a loaded parsha. How appropriate to be learning about the importance of Moshe Rabbeinu as we gear up towards Gimel Tammuz on a day like today of Chaf Sivan. But today we want to choose, in the last half hour, we want to choose one particular area, one sikha that's going to give us a practical, relevant life message that we can put into practice today. And it should carry us, it should inspire us, it should give us a guiding light in whatever it is we're going to be involved in when we hang up the shir, when we get back to whatever else we're doing, behind the computer screen or under the side of the phone. Tonight, tomorrow morning, as we navigate through our real life, regular life, because it's real, it's not going anywhere. This is where we need to be. But tonight, we're going to be taking a recharge on our Yiddishkeit, on our Torah navigation, so that we can continue navigating in the Torah way. Topic for tonight is a Sikh in Chelik Ches, and we are looking at the title we've been chosen for us is Different Yet Equal. Great line. Different yet equal. It's very different than equal yet different equals. What's the saying from Animal Farm? What's the Animal Kingdom? No. Everybody's equal, but some more equal than others. Okay. We're all the same is tempting. However, says the Sikha, it's also premature. We're all the same and saying everybody's equal. Is that the same thing? If I say that everybody's equal versus if I say everybody's the same, spot the difference. Anyone? Anyone want to help me with finding a difference between saying everybody's the same and saying everybody's equal? We're playing on words here.
Well, everybody's same. Everybody's same because you're Jewish.
Can't hear you.
You're one soul.
You know what? I can't believe it. My sound was on mute, so I couldn't hear anybody until now. I hope I didn't miss anyone saying anything. I'm talking to myself. Okay.
Okay.
Say that again, please, Sylvie. Go ahead.
So everybody's the same. Is it Eckhart? One. one soul. So you're all the same.
Okay.
Like a body, you're different because some of the head, some of the arms, some of the legs. Yeah. So you all have a purpose and an aim and a meaning in life, but you're all the same because Eckhart won.
Okay, so that's a good explanation of what it means we're all the same. Thank you for that. I'm looking if anyone can help me with the difference between saying that we are the same and if we had to find a difference, what would be the difference between that and saying everybody is equal?
We're not the same because we're male and female, and we cannot be equal. If you've just divided us into 3 tribes, how can that be equal? We are all something, we are all a lot, but we're not all the same. And that's what makes life interesting.
Okay. So we're having here, on one hand, we had an argument, we are all the same because of Echad, and we all have souls. On the other hand, we're saying we're not all the same. There are male and female, the people live here, there, Kohen and Levi Yisrael, there's loads of differences. I'm going to ask the following. Is there any way you would be able to explain if I were to make a statement, the following? So I'm going to make the statement and ask you to explain it, right? It's not fair, but let's imagine, right? I say, we're not the same, we are different, yet equal.
We could be religiously because we're all Yidden. In that respect, we are the same because we have the belief, we read the same Torah, so our understanding may be different, but we're all the same in that respect.
Okay, you know what? And thank you for sharing that. On one area or in certain things, we are the same, and in certain things, we are equal. I'm going to ask a different question. How important is equality? How important is to be equal? Is it even a thing? Should we be trying to find equality? Is it a good thing to be equal? And when we say everybody's equal, is that a fair suggestion? I mean, is that a value that Jewish people aspire towards?
We're not equal. Men and women aren't equal with each other.
Okay, let's do women and women. Should all women be equal?
Women. We're just infinitely better, but that doesn't mean to say we're equal.
Let's do women and women for a second. That's not a boys-girls thing. Gets too tacky. 1 second. Women and women. Should all women be equal?
Should all women be equal, or are women all equal?
I'm asking should.
We are equal because we are women, but that doesn't mean to say we have actual equality between women.
Okay. I like where we're going. Anyone want to add to that?
The question is, what is the meaning of the word equal? Does it mean equal in value?
Yeah.
Or some other meaning?
Let's go with equal in value for a second. Go ahead. That was good observation. Let's say equal is equal in value. The concept of equality in value, is that a good thing? Is that something we aspire towards? Is that something we would commend?
I think equal in value is good because it doesn't matter if you're a water carrier or a wood chopper or you're a high priest. You've all got a role and a purpose. Okay.
So it sounds like we don't want to let go of the value of equality. We appreciate equality as a value. Are we okay on agreeing on that? Can we agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. I think so. If anyone doesn't agree, now's your chance to speak up. At least to put in a good word. There's no right or wrong answer. It's your answer.
Maybe to Hashem, we are all equal.
Okay, so
in Hashem's eyes, we are all equal because he didn't say, I'm going to give you this or this. He went for the children when he gave his Torah, but from then on, we are all equal as far as that is concerned in the eyes of Hashem.
Okay. I like what we say. We've now blamed it on Hashem. I love it. God not blamed it. We've hung it on Hashem. But it is the pasuk. I think this is partially what you're referring to. It's in the Torah.
Yeah.
And God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. In the image of Hashem. Male or female. It's all in there. We are all, in the eyes of Hashem, we're equal. Okay, so let's say, at least for argument's sake, let's assume for now, we're going to revisit that. And just to jump the gun for a second, yes, equality is an important value in Yiddishkeit as well. but we're going to have to really find what equality means. So whoever mentioned the question of what do we mean by equality, we are going down that route. But let's just say practically, the question is, are we really all valued equally? And if we are all equal, do we allow for differences? I'm going to take this to an extreme that doesn't say on the screen, but I think we can handle this. The argument could be made that if we are all the same, then the same equals redundant. If everything is the same, then most of us are redundant, unnecessary, not needed. And arguably, perhaps this is one of the greatest challenges that the average youngster in today's day and age goes through, is the feeling of redundancy, unnecessary, not needed. And perhaps a big part of this is because if the conversation always revolves around equality, everyone's the same, no one is different, in a subconscious messaging, I'm picking up that I have nothing more than anyone else. I can have nothing different than everyone else. And therefore, why am I needed? And of course, that's not healthy. It's actually very unhealthy. But let's leave that aside. Let's not explore what the problems of the world are as much as what we want to explore, which is what is the message the Torah wants to live with? What is the Parshah telling us about this question? Now, how does this tie into the Parshah? Because actually, this exactly was what Korach's argument was. Korach, as the rebellion leader, led his rebellion against Moshe, arguing that Moshe Rabbeinu, you are taking too much credit for yourself and your close family, nepotism, or whatever you want to call it. What was the core of his calling, of his tagline? What did he call out? What was his motto? So it's in the Psukim. We're going to look at it inside. We have here the verses from this week's Parshah. Speak to the congregation, saying, withdraw from the dwelling of Korach, Dathan, and Abiram. Oh, you know what? This is the punishments. I'm looking for the right one. Sorry. Korach took himself aside together with Dathan and Abiram and Oimim Palace. The men, together with the 250 of the nation's reputable chieftains, confronted Moses. What did they say? They surrounded Moshe and Aaron and said to them, you have taken too much greatness for yourself. Here's the key. This whole nation is holy, and God is among us all. So why should you rise above God's congregation? What's Korach asking for? What's Korach's complaint? What's bothering him?
He wants equality.
Equality, exactly.
But he wants equality, but a lot of what he said is jealousness, isn't it? When he spoke to Moshe and said that they were cousins, your family's on the top. Why is your family on top? Why can't my family be there? Was that equality he was speaking about, or was that a jealous feeling because he wasn't where Moshe Rabbeinu was?
So your question's a great question. And certainly the way Rashi frames it is that he started off with jealousy. And that's what drove him to do what he did. However, the claim he makes in the Psukim actually are a claim that we could argue if it wasn't him. Let's say somebody else would have come up with this argument. What would we answer? He's arguing equality. Maybe his argument stems from or was driven by his own personal jealousy, but it seems like his claim is quite a real claim. Everybody's holy. We all heard Hashem talk to us at Sinai. We were all created in the image of Hashem. So why should you become the leader? Let's stop and think about that for a minute. Korach, how would you set up the Jewish people in a better way? What would make you happy? Korach, describe what you would like to see. What's the answer? Everybody holy, and therefore no leaders, just everybody connecting directly to Hashem. Everyone on exactly the same level. Everyone equal. He doesn't say everyone has to be the same, but he does say everybody should be equal value. Now here's the question. The question becomes that we know the end of the story. Hashem was so unhappy with Korach, so furious, he gets swallowed into the ground, and the 250 men who were with him get burnt up in fire. So clearly, he wasn't a good guy. With his old campaign for equality, it wasn't what Hashem was looking for. Now, what's more is that not only does Korach become a bad guy, and he doesn't manage to achieve the equality he was looking for, he actually becomes the symbol of dispute. The Mishnah tells us, this is in Tractate Sanhedrin, quote from the Gemara, Amar Rav. Rav said that one who's involved in quarrel transgresses a negative precept, as it says, one should not be like Korach and his congregation. Someone who creates quarrel is transgressing a prohibition in the Torah. Which prohibition? Not to behave like Korach. So Korach is now the new symbol for discord, inequality, dispute. Because someone who creates dispute is accused of, transgresses the Korach syndrome. So the question becomes, how does the man who's championing and he's campaigning for equality become the symbol and become connected to the exact opposite, the inequality? How does he get so off track? Now, why is that relevant to us? Because as we started this evening, we all agree that equality is a good trait. It's a good value. And if it's a good value, then we want to campaign for it. But as we're seeing now, even if we're trying and we're building towards equality, we must become aware that there's a danger as we campaign for equality, we can make the same mistake Korach made and end up creating the exact opposite of that which we are campaigning for. We must know this. We've got to be very careful about this. In the words of the Sikha, text 7, here we go. How could a demand for unity among Jews result in dispute? And how could disputes be so polarizing that it becomes the prototype of every quarrel amongst Jews forever after? That's the question that we're looking to find an answer for. But before we do this in the theoretical, I just want to borrow the idea and apply it to very close to home. Very often, we see ourselves, or we witness people around us, trying to create unity. Yet, that very attempt to create unity does the exact opposite and drives the quarreling parties further apart. I can tell you as a parent, it's very hard to see children, my own children or any children, fighting over something that could have been resolved in a much better way. And sometimes either it's because they're tired, they're hungry, something else has gone wrong, they're in a bad mood. And just to watch them argue with each other and fight and be in a quarrel, it's just really hard. But what we need to realize is that sometimes trying to resolve that quarrel could make it even worse. And when it's with kids, it's only a little problem because hopefully it won't last for very long. But with adults, it could be much worse. And if we take that a little closer to home, when there's discord within myself, if I have mixed feelings and I feel myself being ripped in different directions, it's not always simple to solve the quarrel within me. In particular, we talk about the fight between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, the good inclination versus the evil inclination. And I feel myself trying to be pulled one way or another way. And sometimes I feel like one side is winning and maybe it's not the right side. And I try and navigate a way to be able to resolve it, that I shouldn't feel so bad about doing the right thing. Or God forbid, I shouldn't feel so good about doing the wrong thing. And hopefully try and do the right thing. And what we're learning here is that there has to be, besides for the interest in doing the right thing, there's another ingredient that will mitigate the risk factor that Korach missed. Because Korach actually was a great guy. As we started off saying this evening, he was very grounded, he was wealthy, he was a great scholar, he was from the top tribe, he was from Shevet Levi, he was a first cousin to Moshe. He was a great person. Yet his mistake cost him so much. He becomes the prototype of the bad guys, of the guys who are creating discord, dispute. So learning where he went wrong, but more importantly, what we could avoid going forward is going to be highly, highly important. So in order to discover the answer, I would like to look at two more texts, and then we'll talk about it and try and put it into a practical, relevant life message that we can use in the light of the Torah, and we can use it in so many areas. And we can know that this week's Parsha is guiding us towards Mashiach, towards an uplifted reality. Our life can be redemptive. How so? So let's do a couple of texts here. This is a text from Moshe's response to Korach. Korach is on a roll. He's like campaigning away. He's got great momentum. Everyone's behind him. And it looks like he's going to be on the winning side. He's got such a great argument. He's going to take Moshe down. There's enough of this inequality. There's great leaders and monarchs and all that. Enough with that. Let's say everyone equal. And Moshe says to him, Moshe speaks to Korach and his entire congregation, Lamer, saying, Boiker in the morning. For Yoda Hashem is Ashaloi, God will make known who is his and who is holy. And he will draw them near to him, and the one he chooses, he will draw near to him. Moshe tells them, come again in the morning, and in the morning Hashem will demonstrate and make clear who's who and who's up and who's down. Says Rashi, Moshe Rabbeinu tells them to come boiker in the morning. This idea that Moshe Rabbeinu says to him, come in the morning, we explained in a simplistic idea that he was stalling for time and giving Korach a chance to be able to calm down. Says Rashi, there's another depth. And Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Korach, you should know that although you have a righteous, virtuous campaign in the back of your mind, you're crossing a boundary here. And crossing a boundary cannot work. He says to him, Boiker is morning. Can you change that mornings should no longer be mornings? And morning should be night and night should be morning? Can you as a human being decide whether you want it to be day or night? No. You can decide what you're going to do when it's day, what you're going to do when it's night. But when it's night, and when it's morning. And at that morning time, you see the moon go down, the sun come up. That's because Hashem sets the boundary of what's day and what's night. And boundaries are there as a framework within which we can create goodness. Within which breaking out of boundaries won't create unity. Taking down boundaries that were set by Hashem will only create chaos. And chaos doesn't equal unity. Unity is not chaotic, and chaos is the opposite of unity. So let's see the Rashi inside. Moshe says to Korach, God is sound bound to his world. Are you able to transform morning into evening? Doing so is as impossible as it would be for you to undo this separation. The same terminology that Hashem uses to divide between morning and night is the same terminology that Hashem uses to divide between the Kohen and the non-Kohen. The verse states it was evening and it was morning, and he separated. Vayavdil Hashem separated. Similarly, it says, Kach vayibadel Aaron lakdishay, Aaron was set apart to sanctify him. It's a boundary put there in place. And crossing and breaking boundaries does not create unity. So for someone to say that everybody has to be the same and the boundaries that were laid out should be removed, that's not a campaign for unity. That's a campaign for chaos. And chaos doesn't result in unity. Unfortunately, it results in the exact opposite. So let's delve in a little deeper to what Korach's campaign was and how Moshe responded to Korach's campaign and what that means to us. Let's do one more text. This is a text from Pirkei Avos, but it helps us frame what we're about to learn. The text in Pirkei Avos describes Hashem creating heaven and earth. We know it took Hashem 40 days to give us the Torah. How many days did it take him to give us the world? To create heaven and earth? 40 days to give us the Torah. How many days did it take him to create heaven and earth? 6. 7th day he created rest. The world was created with 10 utterances. In those 6 days, Hashem created heaven and earth. He didn't go to B&Q or to Home Depot, wherever he went. Hashem went to creation. He created out of no creation, out of no thing. He created something. What was that something? He created heaven and earth, the entire universe, whatever you want to call it. The world was created with 10 utterances, as you read in the Torah. Says the Mishnah. What does this teach us? Surely it could have been created with 1 utterance. Great question. Thank you, Mishnah. Why couldn't Hashem just say, let there be a universe? Does he need to say, let there be a sun, a moon, and this and that? 10 utterances? Says the Mishnah, there's a very good reason why Hashem didn't just say, let there be creation. Instead, divided and subdivided it. This was in order to punish the wicked who destroyed the world that was created with 10 utterances, and to give a good reward to the righteous who maintained the world that was created with 10 utterances. There is specifics. There is detail. And I'm going to say there is differences. There are things that are different than other things. And that was created. Multiplicity was created by a singular God. Hashem Echad created multiplicity as a part of creation. Now I'm going to ask you to think for a second. How does a singular creator end up with a world that is so multifaceted and so multiple? How do you end up with a world with 7 billion people before you started counting how many different types of animals? How many ants are alive on this planet? How many ants live in your garden, on your block, on your street, in your town? How many ants exist in this world, in this planet? How many flies? Where does this come from? Where does the vast multiplicity happen? And the answer is that was creation. Hashem created differences. But guess what? Differences means that things aren't the same. Differences means that there are boundaries, that animals are not humans, and humans hopefully aren't animals. And that was part of creation. And just like Hashem created different species, within the human race, Hashem created differences. And there were Kohanim and Leviim and Israelim. And when Korach tried to take down boundaries that Hashem has laid out, he wasn't creating unity. He was creating disunity, discord. We're going to take questions momentarily because we're really against the clock. And I would like to do what it means to have unity within differences. What does it mean to have unity within differences? And if we have time, we're going to learn that Korach was actually a believer in Mashiach times. The only problem was he would have Mashiach without Mashiach. And that's dangerous. But he didn't work towards Mashiach. He tried to make as if he's Mashiach. And that's not okay. Let's just do this quickly on the screen. 4 ways to deal with differences. We're looking for ways to be within unity, but with having differences. So is there something that can wait, or can we take the question now?
Wait.
Okay, jumping right along. The first, the most simplistic way of dealing with variety, with differences, tolerance and respect. I know we're different. Everyone's got their own thing, but I respect everybody's differences. I get on with my thing, you do your thing, and we'll be okay. We're not going to disturb each other. Level 1, it's a great start. We're not all the same, but we respect one another. Spice it up a little bit. Not only that we're different, we can actually appreciate, although I see things my way, I actually can hear a different perspective. So that is a 6 or a 9 on that page. Well, it depends which way you're looking. And I can see the same thing with many other of our variety and differences. So someone mentioned before, men and women, we're not the same, but we can respect what each one does, thinks, operates, feels, appreciates. And we can not only tolerate and respect, we can actually value a different perspective. Up a notch, we can not only value the different perspectives, we can actually see how together we can share a common goal. We can feed into each other. We can create goodness together. I can do what you can't do, but you can do what I can't do. And together we can create goodness. That's not only tolerance, that's not only valuing perspective, that's joining forces where we're different, but we have an equal part in creating a general goal. And then there's another level. All these three would be levels on being able to operate in a healthy unity society. But then there's a deeper perspective. And you get this, which you could perhaps say is the spiritual perspective. And that is, I think Sylvia mentioned this, if we stop seeing things as the way they look, we stop seeing things at the way they are in the here and now, and we could focus on where we come from, who we are at our core. And if we think about creation in that terms, then the creation isn't just a man and a woman, but the creation is a soul and a soul, a piece of creation and a piece of creation, a godly being and another godly being. And on that level, we're not only going to tolerate one another, we're not only going to value each other's perspectives, we're not only going to create a common goal, but we are actually exactly the same at our core. The problem with that is, or the shortcoming of that last level is, that our core, we are the same, but we aren't just the core. No. We are actually creations. And we need to be honest that we have needs more than just our core needs. We have talents and skills that are different than just at our core. And although on one level, we are all exactly the same, that's a very, very deep level that we are not living on right now. We aren't engaged only on our core. We are very real. So the boundaries that Hashem has created in the here and now, in the creation of creation, does have differences. And therefore, that last fourth level isn't necessarily a way to operate on a day-to-day. It's a way we can have as a guide, as a compass, as a spiritual uplifting, as a mental and emotional aspiration, inspiration. But we have to respect the differences that are in the here and now. Do we need leadership if we are all the same at our core? Korach says no, because at the core we're all the same. Says Moshe, the boundaries that Hashem has created are intentional. That's what makes creation into creation. And that's what makes productivity productive. That's what will make the differences unified. If I cannot respect the boundary, if I cannot respect the difference, I won't be able to respect the value, the goal which each individual will gear towards. Says Moshe to Korach, there's a morning and a night, and I'm going to ask you to stop trying to take morning and say you have to be night, and stop taking night and ask them to be morning. In a personal level, Korach, treasure your role that is different than my role, and let all your followers treasure what they can bring to the table that's different than what you can bring to the table. And that will bring true unity. Differences is sacred. Say it one more time. Difference is sacred. And arguably even more sacred than the value of equality. Because equality without difference isn't equality, it's chaos. Difference without equality is one step away from being able to tolerate and then value and have equality. So equality without difference is heading away from equality, is destructive. Respecting the difference is headed towards the equality. What does that mean to us on our personal level? What can the saga of Korach and Moshe teach us personally? That whatever it is that our life has brought us to, the circumstances, skill sets that we have, we should learn from Moshe's message to Korach that whatever it is that I have, lean into it, treasure it, live by it. And when I do, this is bringing not only the best of me out of me, but it brings the best of everybody. Because it means that I am doing my part in championing and campaigning for true equality. What a powerful Moshe Rabbeinu message this parasha has. Whatever I can bring to the table is what it will take to bring equality. It will take to bring unity. And when Mashiach comes, we'll be able to be on the level that Korach thought he could achieve. And because when we get there, then we'll be able to live at the core level, even in the here and now. And what's the path towards that? Being the best you, under the circumstances that you have. If I could be the best me that I can be ever, under the circumstances that I have, that's not running away from equality, that's bringing us closer than ever. And when we do that, Hashem reciprocates and brings out the best of what he can give to us. Of course, that is bringing us to the destination we achieve. Thank you very much for joining. I know we're going 3 minutes over time. I appreciate your time. I wish you all a special week. Choches Sivan Koyach Digger Week. Rosh Chodesh Digger Week. And of course, the Shabbos Gimel Tammuz Digger Week. Should be a week of Iskashros, week of meaning. A major mazel tov and shout out to Mrs. Abrams on the tremendous simcha. And of course, a big yasher koyach to Rav Michal and Rabbi Leah Cohen for sponsoring tonight's class. Thank you very much, everybody. I wish you all a wonderful week. Questions, comments, and suggestions are all welcome. Thank you for joining. Same time, same place next week.
Thank you. Rabbi Cohen, can I just say thank you? Thank you very much for coming. And thank you very much for making me feel like a film star tonight. That's like the big mazel tov, the balloons and everything. That's the nicest thing that's happened to us. Thank you so much for making us feel special. It's very kind.
Mazel tov on the simcha. We are all rejoicing with you.
Thank you very much indeed. Really
Take care, everybody. Have a good week.
All right. Bye.
Bye now.
See you Wednesday.